Hey guys, can you hear me? I hope that you guys got the message. I was on a podcast and it went over, and my team said, "We told everybody." Did you guys hear that or no? Have you just been sitting here going, "What the heck?" Just sitting here with what the heck? Oh no, that's horrible. They told me that they told you. No. Oh, you did see it. A couple of people. No. Okay, good. Oh, good, 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 good. Oh, good. Okay. Phew. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Cool. So this weekend, I'm doing a big thing for my book tour. So I'm not going to be around. So just this one time, we're not doing it then. And so we're all hanging out right now together. And it has been, you guys, what a whirlwind. If you want to know behind the scenes of this book, it's just been nonstop. I've been doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 shows a day, people being on my show, me being their show, doing a lot of press, just did Forbes, flying to New York to do the Rachel Ray show, just talked to Good Morning America. It has been, I am like excited and exhausted. I went to the UPS store today and mailed out like 30 copies of the book to some important people, including Chelsea Clinton. That was really exciting. Did you guys see the Chelsea Clinton thing? Did anyone see that? I'll tell you what happened real quickly is when I was in Atlanta in April, we went to the Atlanta Coke Museum with my kids. Went to the Coke Museum, and then right next to the Coke Museum is an aquarium. So we were going to have Coke Museum and aquarium. And in the middle between the two museums, my kids were hungry, of course. So we're like walking out of the museum, like looking for food. There was like nothing really right near the grounds of the Coke Museum area. So we just like made a quick right, walked up the street, made like another random left turn. And then there was like a Baja Fresh, which is like a taco place. And then next to that is like an ice cream store. So it was like 2:35, 2:40 in the afternoon, random. And we walk into this Baja Fresh and there's no one in there except for me, my husband, my kids, and Chelsea Clinton and her. It's actually her chief of staff. But I didn't know that at the time. It was just like her and another woman. So I live in LA. I never go up to anyone. I see famous people in LA regularly, like quite often. To give you an example, like we live in Beverly Hills. So I'll see, Courtney Cox at the pharmacy, or my OBGYN who delivered my kids. He is kind of famous. So in his office, when I was pregnant, Pink was also pregnant. And so I met her. Her name is actually Alicia, I think. And we were like sitting next to each other one time. And Jennifer Goodwin was pregnant at the same time, and she was there. And the Kardashians also use him as a doctor. So that was funny. I've never felt the need to talk to any of those people. And then for some reason in Atlanta, sitting next to her at a Baja Fresh, I just felt like I had to say hi to her. I don't know why. I'm not even a political person. Like I'm really not political at all. Like zero, nothing, like not into politics. I just felt compelled to go over to her. So this is a long story with a good payoff. So I go over and I'm like, it's funny to see Chelsea Clinton at a Baja Fresh, like getting your own like salsa at the salsa bar. Like, what's up? What are you doing in Atlanta? And she's like, oh, I wrote a book on endangered species and I'm going to speak at the aquarium in about 30 minutes. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. You're such like a down-to-earth person. Like you're eating fast food. It's neat. And I said, and you're pregnant and like you're running around. It's a lot going on. And she was like, introduce me to your kids. So I introduced her to my, I think my older two were like nervous, but my youngest one comes over. She's like a really good wingman. She's 2 at the time. Now she's 3. And she's like, oh, she's adorable. And then she's like, what are you doing in Atlanta? And I told her that we were just there to do a couple things. I was there for work, partly because I did like some podcast stuff. And then we were also doing some family time. So she's like, oh, what's your podcast? And I tell her what my podcast is about. And she's like, oh my God, amazing. That's so cool. Like, who are your guests? And I tell her Howard Schultz, and I've had all these different, I start naming all the people. And she's like, wow, that's so neat. She's like, will you have me on? Can I be on your show? And I was like, sure. Like, of course, like I wasn't going to say no. I said, sure. And then she's like, okay, well, take my number. So she takes my phone literally, and she goes, you need to clean your screen. My phone was like disgusting because my kids are always on my phone watching like kids YouTube. And it was literally like coated in like food and Play-Doh and, And I was like, note to self, like, you never know when you're going to run into Chelsea Clinton and she's going to grab your phone. Like, your phone should be clean. So she puts her number in my phone, and I reached out, and then I think what happened is she gave me her assistant's information, and then we actually tried to book her, which was in September. And I think the date that she had wasn't good for me. So we postponed it. So I'm like, whatever. Like, I kind of had it in the back of my mind. So 3 days ago, I get emails from people. My publisher at Macmillan emails me. This woman who used to be my lit agent emails me, and everybody's like, have you read New York Magazine? And I'm like, no, I live in LA. I don't read New York Magazine. And everyone is like, well, you have to check out New York Magazine because you're in it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Is it about the book? Like, my book's coming out. What's it about? So I read this article, Chelsea Clinton. They're basically doing this whole article about her and like where she's at in her life right now and how she's trying to figure out her own career. And like halfway through the article, she says that she's been trying to figure out what she's doing. She wrote a book for kids. She's trying to figure out what her next move is, like what her life is going to be like now. And she says, you know, I was in Atlanta and I ran into Cathy Heller, who has this amazing podcast. I was standing at Baja Fresh and she walked over and it was so cool to meet her. And I asked her if I could be on her show and she said yes. And I'm waiting to be on. I'm like, I'm being punked, right? Like, crazy town. So how insane is that? I mean, it's like a joke. Like, it's honestly insane. Insane, right? It is insane, right? I'm not crazy. Like, that's crazy, nuts, and weird. It's crazy, nuts, and weird. So of course this morning I texted her. I was like, thanks for making me feel like a someone. She's like, well, it was amazing that we met. I'm like, she's like, I really want to be on your show. I'm such a fan. I'm like, what's happening to my life? How crazy. So I sent her a book as well this morning. That's my long story. That's it, you guys. Have a good day. No, I'm just kidding. So that's my long story. Crazy, crazy. So it's been really nuts what's going on over here, but fun. And I'm not sleeping, but it's all good. So today, what I wanted to do, you know, I've been doing a lot of coaching. In fact, when people pre-order the book, we were doing this like extra special thing. If people bought like a big chunk of books, I did some like one-on-one sessions, which I never do, which was fun. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I would sit with people and have this time to really get down to it. What do you want? What do you want to build? What's your business about? How do you want to serve the world? All of that stuff. And we would get to the point in the conversation where we were clear about what they wanted. We were clear about what they wanted to do. And then the moment would come where I would be like, great. So are you putting it out there? You know, like, where's the outreach? Where's the business development? Which it didn't matter whether I was talking to someone who wanted to be a personal trainer or who wanted to make stationery. I talked to all different kinds of people at the point where they knew what they wanted to do and they had an idea of who their audience was. When it came down to actually doing something about it, it's always the same. There is just no momentum. And I want to talk to you today, and I want to do some exercises with you to help you through this, because when I was able to sit with people one-on-one for an hour, which again, I don't usually do that, but as a special for the book, we were like, if you're a big fan of the book and you want to buy like a huge chunk of copies, we'll do it. So I did a few, and it was really fascinating to do that kind of deep work with people. And we had some big breakthrough moments where people were like literally like in tears and sort of like had some awareness, some real awareness. And that, I think that the goal that anybody has if they're trying to help you is to help you see the world differently than you saw it before. Like, that's an epiphany, right? That's what a breakthrough is. It's sort of like the difference between wearing glasses that have like this like dirty, foggy like tint, and then someone gives you new glasses and now you see the world new. Now, in order to do that, we have to change the narrative that we carry around with us. And that narrative dictates what it is that we have in our life. So the results of our life, right? Like whatever you ate today, whatever in your bank account, however you are feeling in your relationship, like whatever the actual results are right now in your life, the parts that are good, the parts that are not as good, all of that is basically what's coming as a result of your narrative. Okay. The narrative, the story that you tell yourself. Now that narrative dictates the habits that you have, right? Those habits dictate the results of your life. So working backwards, it's really important to look at what's the narrative, okay? How do you go inside and disrupt that, change that? What we do as human beings is we look for evidence of what we tell ourselves to be true. So when we have a narrative that we don't even know we have, because it's like running just unconsciously, you will then constantly all day long look for evidence that what it is that you tell yourself is the truth. And then it just keeps getting reaffirmed and it creates habits, right? So one thing I just want to say about habits is, let's say you want to do more co-writes or send more emails pitching your music or do more research, any of it. And it's not happening as much as you want. So there's a few things that need to happen. One thing is that you have to associate pain with not doing it. You have to associate a lot of pleasure with doing it. Also, instead of trying to bite off the whole thing, I would give yourself like a 5-minute task every day, something that like is absolutely doable, so that you get in the habit of being a person who does those things. Because after you do that 5 minutes every day, now that's a habit and you identify with that as something that you do. And so then if you wind up doing it for 7 minutes or 8 minutes, it's more likely that you actually will, because you just started doing it like 5 minutes a day. So I would start with something like that, number one. Number two is, instead of saying like, I'm going to completely change the way that I operate in my business or as an artist, which is not realistic, remember this. Every time, let's say you're trying to lose weight, every time you do a jumping jack, it's a vote for the person that you want to be, right? So let's say you're trying to lose weight or be healthier, whatever, however you want to look at that. So instead of saying, I'm going to do all of these things, and then you get upset with yourself when you don't, think of it like you're casting votes. Like in an election, it's not that every vote has to go to this one person, but the majority of votes have to go to a person, and that's who wins. So in your life, every single time you do an action, think of it like a vote for the identity that you really want to be and have. So ask yourself, like, who do I want to be? I want to be the kind of person who does pitch my music. I want to be the kind of person who does actually have more music. And I want to be the kind of person who, whatever it looks like. And then instead of saying like, it's all or nothing, oh my God, I failed, I didn't do it. If you just say, every time I take an action, then that's positive because I just placed a vote for the person that I want to be. That's really helpful because those votes start to add up. And what happens then is, if you didn't do something in the morning, let's say you're on a diet and you get mad at yourself because you ate a cookie, you can be like, well, it doesn't really matter because that was a few minutes ago. And right now I'm going to cast a different vote. And the vote I'm going to cast right now is that I'm going to drink some water. And now I just cast a vote towards the person I want to be, because it doesn't have to be everything. It just has to be more than not. Does that make sense? Okay. So we need to look at the identity piece, right? Who do you want to be? Who do you think you are? What's possible? All of that stuff. Asking yourself, like, what kind of artist do you want to be? So let's just start with that. And then we're going to start looking at the narrative that we've been telling ourselves. Okay. Let's start with that. I want you to write it into the chat. So like, you can take a second, think about it. And then like, as you're writing it, then click enter once you have it. Who is the kind of person that you want to be? What's the identity that you do want? Do you want to be the kind of person who's feeling brave and bold and happy and prolific and disciplined? Like, how would you describe it? Like, what is the kind of person that you want to be in your life, in your business? You can describe it however you want. Just write it in a few words and type it into the chat. Okay. Free, happy artist, successful artist, prolific yet relatable. I want to be an artist that experiments fearlessly. Okay. Keep going. Beautiful. I want to be confident, prolific, approachable, an artist that can survive off my craft and tour the world. Beautiful. Proactive every day, successful, happy artist. I want to be strong, beautiful, disciplined, magnetic, happy, healthy, successful, brave, working, comfortable, disciplined, a go-to inspiration, a source of value for others, successful, authentic, kind, generous, stronger, collaborative. Beautiful. Okay. I love that, right? Like just reading those words, like I feel so much respect and and excitement for that person. Like that's just exciting and good, and it's putting good energy in the world. Awesome. Okay, great. I want you to know something about the world that we live in now. You know, doing this podcast, I feel like I'm basically on a research mission because I sit with people who do these TED Talks and I read so many books because I prepare for all these shows. And so I feel like I've learned so much about human behavior. And one thing that I've learned recently is that we live in a time where people actually feel worse than ever. And we're lonelier than ever, more depressed than ever. And yet, as far as the society is concerned, we have the most we've ever had, the most technology, people live longer, like all of these things are better than ever. And yet everything inside of the human being is actually not as good. And the reason being is because we have very, 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 very thin skin is what it turns out. As human beings today, we have very thin skin. And it correlates to the easier things are when you can Google something in 2 minutes, when you can Postmates a delivery to your house, when everything feels so immediate and we can be super comfortable, we forget how to be uncomfortable. So when people ask me, why is your podcast so successful? Why is this? Why is that? I'm like, well, you can rattle off all of the things about me that are really successful, which is really only one part of the story, because you're not looking at all of the mountains I've had to traverse and all of the things that didn't go well and how difficult it is to create a podcast, how much discipline it takes, how much energy, how much of a team it takes, how much money it's cost, how much it is, the ups, the downs, the scary parts, right? So, Jeff, you're sharing your screen. That's okay. I know that probably doesn't feel good. I'm going to stop your sharing. So when that is the case, what we have to understand is that what we've basically just done is we live in a time where we don't want to be uncomfortable. We don't want to be out of our comfort zone. We don't want to do things that are intimidating or scary. It turns out, you guys, that when somebody is a Rhodes Scholar, this is just like really fascinating. More often than not, that person has a hobby that is something you would never expect to go with who they are. Like this person is a scientist and they're also in their community theater production of Peter Pan. This person is hang on, I'm just going to make sure everyone's muted. This person, let's say, is a Rhodes Scholar and, they're a professor. And meanwhile, they can speak, 4 or 5 languages or something like that. The point is that what's correlated with success is this like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, doing things that make you feel like it's new, right? Like even going to a dinner party with people that you don't know, you get to have different kinds of conversations. You're not just saying the same thing about yourself all the time. And most people would say at first, like, I don't want to go to a place where I don't know anybody, but it's actually good for you, right? Or taking instead of taking a guitar lesson, like take a vibraphone lesson, like it's good for you actually, because it's constantly putting you in this place where you're at the edge of that comfort zone. And that's really good because then you start to, your ability to learn is like 10 times when you're in a new environment than when you're in the same environment over and over. Right. So this idea of like thin skin, this is where a lot of the sadness is coming in, because it used to be that people were just like they were really comfortable with hard work. Like in order to wash your clothes, you had to like take your clothes down to the river and like scrub them on a washing board, right? You couldn't just like put them into the washing machine. So all of this has helped us in some ways, but actually hurt us in other ways, right? Okay, so what we have to do is we have to develop habits. And we have to understand that those habits are what are the things that are actually going to determine what our life looks like, right? So part of it is being uncomfortable and tolerating it. And you can actually tolerate it more than you think, okay? So every single day, if you need to do something, like I said, if you could just do it a few minutes every day, that would be probably a huge game changer. Just a few minutes every single day, start to make it a new habit. Now, when you start, and this is the second thing I wanted to do, when you start looking into why you don't reach out, okay, I want you to list for me what feelings come up? I want you to be honest, okay? Because I talk to lots of people, and this is the number one thing that stands in people's way. So it's not just you. You're not alone. There's nothing unique about it. You're not a unicorn. You're not unusual and weird. You're so normal. I'm just curious for you, what comes up when I say, okay, so now it's time to put it into the world. You're going to do some outreach. You're going to pitch. You're going to do all of that. Okay, so already the answers are coming in: rejection by others, embarrassment, afraid I'll be held accountable, fear of being hated, fear of being super annoying, not ready, I don't want to piss someone off, fear of success, fear of failure, feeling odd, unprepared, not ready. Okay, this is good. Keep going. Not ready, not being enough, inept, lack of tools. Okay, not sure if the work is good as it needs to be. Okay, so I'm going to open up a doc because I want to write these down. Okay, so the most common ones, I'm just going to write down some of these. Okay, I'm just from memory because a lot of them were consistent. Rejection, fear of not being enough, I heard a lot. What came up? I'm afraid. Let's see. Don't know what to say, not ready, failure, inadequate. Okay, hang on. Okay. What else? What else? Okay, so that came up a few times. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Okay. Okay. All right. So when you think of these things, right? Let's unpack this a little bit. Okay. The most consistent things that I just wrote down was why I don't put things out there: rejection, fear of not being enough, not ready, failure, feeling inadequate, fear of saying the wrong thing. When you hear those, if one of those speaks to you, why is that so hard? What does it feel like to be rejected? Why don't you like this feeling of not being ready? Tell me more. Say more about that. What does it feel like to be a failure? What does it feel like to say the wrong thing? Pick one of those, because those were the most consistent ones that you relate to the most, and then tell me in the chat like what that means and what you feel when you hear that. Like, what is that about? Shame. Okay. Okay, keep going. Feels sad, makes my stomach hurt. Okay. Embarrassed, feels like a failure. Shame of being an outsider. Feel useless, defeated, insecure. Okay. What else? I'm just reading these. Unlovable, not enough, not ready. Okay. Not being liked, ineffective, not good enough, useless, undeserving. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. And it's very important work, actually. And it's very sad. And it's very true. Everybody I know, including myself, has a lot of inner child work to do, a lot of work to do. And if we can do this work, actually, it makes it easier to be successful in our career. It makes it easier for us to be in a better relationship, because so often when we are feeling things in our work, it is a result of repeating patterns and taking things personally and seeing things with a projection we're projecting old interpretations onto new situations that don't actually correlate. Same thing in relationships, where we will be like projecting something onto another person and interpreting things in a certain way when really this person is not necessarily meaning that. And so it's really important to look at some of this stuff. So what I want you to understand is that your brain, your amygdala, the way you function, you are constantly, what are you doing? You've listened to me long enough to know, what is it that what do? You look for danger. Yep. Flight or fright. Yep. Your brain is survival, right? Your brain is created to protect you. So here's the deal, you guys. Okay. This is the truth. We can discuss it and we can make it sound like it's not what it is. And we can have lots of wasted time, and we can talk about how the reason we're not doing it is because we don't have time. We can talk about that, and we can like make sure that we believe it, even though it's not true. We can tell everyone that that's what it is. We don't have time. We can tell people that we don't know the right people. We can tell people that we don't have the resources. We don't have money. We don't live in the right place. We'll come up with all of these things. None of those are the reasons, but we will love those reasons and we will hold on to those reasons, because if I don't have time, if I'm not in the right zip code, if I'm not the right gender, if I'm not the right age, if I'm not the right whatever, I have no accountability. And then actually what really, really is the truth, I don't have to look at the real reason why I'm not doing it, because the real reason I'm not doing it is something so buried in my subconscious. I don't want to actually deal with it because I'm smart. See, every single person that I've ever met, including myself, we have been through so much pain in our life. Every one of you has been through so much loss, so much grief. You know it. You know what happened. You were there. Okay. I know that you know. So what happens is you're very smart. In order for you to have survived that time, you created brilliant survival strategies so that you could actually just get through it, because it was very, very hard. So first of all, have a lot of compassion for yourself, because I know you guys now pretty well. And this group is filled with positivity and energy that is so sweet. And that's not necessarily the same way it is for everyone. So there's something that you were able to do that is so heroic because you got through it, and you have the courage to trust enough to connect with the people in this way, be supportive still, shine a light on other people's successes. And that's really, really actually a lot. The thing is, though, that because the things that you went through were so painful, you have built survival strategies, and you don't necessarily see them. We all don't see them, myself included. They sort of stay in that blind spot, in that like really hard to reach place where you're like, oh, I wish somebody else could like just massage my back because I can't reach it. It's like so blind to you. And what happens is it gets in the way. And here's how it works. Whenever you're about to do something that you interpret might cause you pain, you won't do it because you're smart. And a part of you knew that if you were going to feel pain, you wouldn't survive. So you built these coping mechanisms. Okay, that's just the truth. So we have to go into this a little bit more, okay, if we actually want to clean it up. How many of you know who Marie Kondo is? Okay. So when she cleans out the closet, you know what happens first, right? What happens first? It gets really messy first, right? She takes everything out of the closet and puts it on the bed, and you're like, Marie, you just made my house a mess. And she's like, hang on, just hold on, right? So in order for things actually to get cleared up, we have to take things out and look at them, and then we put back what we need and we get rid of the rest. Okay? That's the way that it is. So we have to look at this for a second. So some of you might not feel comfortable. You don't have to share it with me. You can write it on your own sheet of paper. You could tell it to yourself. You don't even have to write it down if you don't want to, but I suggest that you do, because you're here and because you might want to get the most out of this moment. I would say go ahead and use this time and do it. Write it down for yourself, okay? You don't have to share it in the chat. When I say these words, shame, my stomach hurts because I feel so sad. I feel like an outsider. I feel insecure. I feel useless, unlovable, not ready, not enough. I feel undeserving. I feel shunned. When you hear those words, which are the words that you guys wrote down, whichever one of those you wrote or you relate to that's similar to what you wrote, I want you to write it down for yourself, just for you to see. You don't have to put it in the chat. What is the absolute first memory that you can even think of that you associate in your life with feeling that feeling? Unloved, shame, insecure, not ready, not enough. Write it down for yourself. You don't have to write it in the chat. Just write it for yourself somewhere. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute. Okay, one more minute. Write it down. Okay. Okay, give yourself a second. It looks like a lot of you are finishing up. Okay. So, two questions. Does anyone feel brave enough to share it? And the second question is, if you don't feel brave enough to share it publicly, do you feel brave enough to share it with me privately in the chat? You know, you can private message it to me, and then I could share it if you want to anonymously. Like I could say, this is a situation, and I could read it without you having to be associated with it. If either of those things feel good, either share it or send it to me privately, and then I'll share it anonymously. And if you don't want to do either, that's also fine. But if you do, those are the two ways that you could possibly share it. And I'm going to start to read through a few of these. And thank you guys for being brave and sharing it. And then we're going to talk about how all of this plays into being truly, truly successful. Okay. So one thing that Madeline said is, I remember not, and she wrote this for everyone. I remember not having read the book I was supposed to be reading in 4th grade, and I wasn't ready, and I felt like a sham. Or maybe you meant to say I felt shame, or I felt like a sham. Either way, I got it. Somebody else in the group messaged me privately, and she just said, I felt unloved because I was adopted. And someone else wrote, emotional rejection from my family. And I'll just read through them. All the times my parents left me in public places alone and didn't come find me until I was called by a security guard to get me. I had that experience too. That is a horrible feeling. Bullied at 10 years old. Somebody else just shared with me privately. I was at school about 6 years old, spelling bee, and the teacher said a word, and I said, I know how to spell that. She then took away my blackboard and chalk. At that old, she shamed me and made me sit there alone. 6 years old. Wow. Was bullied severely in school for being a singer, and there was an entire haters group on MySpace devoted to hating me. Wow, that's horrible. One Memorial Day, didn't want to tie my balloon to my wrist like little kids when I was 3 or 4, and then I lost my helium balloon. I couldn't get another one and watched it float away. Everyone in class got to go on a group journey, and I was unready to go due to cost, and my mother didn't have it. So while everyone had bonded and shared amongst, I felt left out. When I was 7 years old, my mom told me I deserved to be living with my birth family in a trailer park and getting raped. Oh my God. Wow. I was fat shamed from a very young age. It was really bad. Also, I wasn't even fat. I backed out of that play as a kid. I felt shame, not good enough, inadequate. I let my dad down. I felt I should have had it tried or said I'd do it. I thought I could, and I felt fear and backed out. I felt it ruined me and my chances of succeeding. When my dad, who's a good person, made me do dishes randomly for the first time at age 5 or 6 and stood behind me and just yelled that I wasn't doing, yelled at me for not knowing how to do it because I'd seen my mom do it 100 times. Like, how did she not know? Being bullied as a kid in a new town, starting grade 1, first time I was made aware I wasn't all that my parents had built me up to. Lasted for years, but found a champion that rescued me from the bullies. Wow. Whole school finding out I had been intimate with another boy. So much. You guys is so much. 5 years old, stole candy from the five and dime, got caught. My mom drove me back to the store and I apologized, but she put ice cubes down my pants because I was a smart ass and the water was dripping down my legs. Oh my God, that's so humiliating. I want to cry from that. I was 6 years old and we were having Sunday dinner. My dad asked me to pick up a piece of chicken and I was too scared to take the drumstick because I thought my brother wanted it. So I refused to take a piece. My dad yelled at me and sent me to my room. I cried all night. It is amazing. See, there's like big T trauma and little T trauma. Okay. Like big T trauma, there's some of it in here, unfortunately. But even these like little T traumas, like when you get yelled at or you feel humiliated because you're at the blackboard, like those things, it's not relevant if someone else had it worse. It doesn't matter. What matters is, see, as a human, your brain is not calculating that this person's pain is a 10 and yours is an 8.4, and no one's doing that. It doesn't matter that someone else, it's not relevant right now. Not relevant, you know? All that matters is that like we are born, and then what winds up happening is in this like 0 to 7, they say is like you're basically under hypnosis in that time. And so these things leave huge imprints, huge impressions. It's actually crazy to think that we remember these little things about the drumstick and we cried and we got yelled at for the dishes, but we remember, right? Because you're so unbridled, you're so unleashed, you're so open, your hands are out to the world, you are so magnetic and energetic and loving. This is what little kids are like. And so everything comes in. There's no guarding, there's no armor, there's no defenses, there's no jaded, sarcastic, like that hasn't happened yet. So all of this feels so painful because you're like, I don't get it. I don't even understand. It's like Charlie Brown in the football. It's like, why are they being mean to me? I'm not even aware of what's going on. Oh, I'm being picked on. I actually just thought they wanted to be my friend. No, I remember being outside with my sister. I was like 4 and she was 7. And I remember being this 4-year-old, and my sister was always pretty goofy. She had these big glasses since she was in kindergarten, and she didn't quite fit in. And I was like her little sister. And believe me, then the tables turned and she was like super popular in high school. And in middle school, I was bullied so badly all through middle school. I had no one to sit with in lunch, you guys, that I used to go to the principal's office and ask if I could like sit there or like file papers because I didn't even want to show my face in the lunchroom because I was sitting by myself. It was like so awful. But when I was little, I remember my sister being bullied one time, and we walked outside of the house and there were these 3 girls who lived on the corner, and they called to her to have her come down like a few houses to hang out. And I knew they were up to no good because they weren't nice. And I was like, why are they calling to her? And she was like, oh, cool. And I go, don't go. I remember saying like, don't go. And would you believe she walked over and they had poured rubber cement on the sidewalk. So when she got there, her shoes got stuck on the sidewalk, and then she just started to cry. And then this really mean boy came and started throwing rocks at her. And she actually lost a tooth and she was bleeding. Like they could be so mean. They were about 5 years older than her. So I was 4, she was 7. They were probably like 12. And I remember feeling terrorized that like I didn't know what to do and I was watching it. So then I like ran inside to tell my mom, and my mom like came out in her like house robe, which was also embarrassing because she wasn't even like done. She was like in her like messy whatever, because my mom was always depressed and always like living like a crazy person a little bit. And she was yelling at these kids, and my sister was still stuck in the thing, and her like mouth was like dripping with blood. And I tried to like get her feet out of her shoes. You know what I mean? Like I remember that. And I have my own memories of that, but I remember that was like so young, you know, to remember. And these things like stay with you, right? And it's interesting because her name is Barbara, my sister's name. And if you actually Google it, it's funny. You know how names have meanings? Like my name is Cathy, which comes from Catherine, and Cathy actually means pure. Don't know. That's just what it means. So Barbara means stranger. And she has this identity where she's like, I don't fit in. I'm always a stranger. And it's really part of her narrative, you know? It's really, really interesting. And she is beautiful and 43 and single and like has always kind of been alone. You know, it's really interesting how these things like stay with us. And I think I've just been surrounded, like my mom was like manic depressive my whole life. So I've been surrounded by like, I mean, that's like nothing, you know, like my dad was like physically abusive. So like I have like a million, I'm telling you like benign, like I'm telling you like roses and sunbeams, like compared to what actually went down, because it's not the point. The point I was actually trying to make are that these things that are not big T traumas, right, are huge for us as kids. They're huge, right? So now what I want to do is, and there's just so much here, and I just appreciate and applaud all of you for making the space right now for everybody else, because everybody that just had the courage to share that way, it's a collective effort, and there's something really beautiful happening right now. And I appreciate that everybody's like going there and making that space. So I now want to look at this, right? So let's look at it. Now, each one of these things is each person's personal story, but there's a lot of overlap. Do you see the overlap? There's a lot of consistent pieces, right? What you see a lot of, and I'm just scrolling, and you guys can scroll through it too. Tell me in the chat, like what things feel that they feel consistent. One of the things that I see is people coming from a place where like they're just so pure, and somebody is mean, right? And you're vulnerable, and it really, really hurts, right? Really, really hurts. There's a lot of like bullying stories in here too, right? That feels like it's repetitive. And there's a lot of like feeling like you did something wrong and then feeling humiliated. That comes up a lot. Are you guys seeing that? What else do you notice that feels like similar in all of these stories, like at the core? Just notice it. There's fear, right? Because like it's sort of like touching a stove, and then it's like it's hot, right? But in these situations, like you didn't know you're about to touch a hot stove. You were doing something really benign, and then there's like a hot stove, and it's just like, whoa, you know, right? Like I don't want to do that, you know? Yeah, a lot of unworthiness. The trust is broken. Yeah. And there's also a lot here where there's people in a position of power, and then they tell us that we're doing something wrong, right? Like that's coming up a lot. Um, yeah. And they're unexpected and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So when you look at it, so tell me now, write it down for yourself, and you already started to write down like rejection, fear of not being enough, right? And then we went into like these feelings of like shame and feeling sad. So see if you could write down, and it's going to be similar to like the first thing, but what do you think is then the story? What's part of the story that you tell yourself? Might it be like, I don't want to stand out too much because I might get criticized? Might it be like, I don't actually want to shine? Or might it be, I don't want to try, or I'm going to fail, or people like, what might some of that story look like? And what I'm trying to get you to do is get to the root of it, because see, when we actually peel away this, like this state of like not wanting to look, right? We actually peel it back. First of all, we can only heal what we feel, number one. So it's very healing actually to take the stuff out of the closet and make some time in your life once in a while to pull over and like hang out with that inner child who needs someone to care. So that's number one. But number two, because when we can notice what this is, you actually, for a second, you actually come to terms with like, oh, no wonder. Like, it's actually gigantic how much pain there is around putting myself out there. Do you see what I'm saying? You see it, right? Like, it's so easy to think like, I just feel frustrated because if I could just figure out how to send an email better, if I had the right subject line, or if I had more time. And then you realize like, no, truly no. Like, I was really, really traumatized. And there's a part of me that doesn't know that it's safe now. That's not the part of me that's running the ship. The part of me that's running the ship are all of the years of habits that created my identity, that created what's my comfort zone, that create who I think I am and what I think I'm capable of and what I think I'm not. And it's so big and it's so intertwined that when you don't look at it like this, you wind up just being like, I guess I don't have time, or I don't want to do it. And then you spin your wheels and spin your wheels. And then time goes by, you go, why is it not working? And it just comes down to how we protect ourselves. That's it. So now it's about the new narrative. Okay. So I'm going to write down now what you're saying now. Okay. And I need to be perfect. Remember I said, so what's the story that you took away from this? I need to be perfect. Other people are better. Okay. I don't want to shine. Right? Why would you want to shine if you're just going to get made fun of, I'm afraid of disappointing people. Yeah, that came up a lot. Okay. So now there's a lot of stuff here. Invisible is the only way to be safe. Okay. So you know what your particular things are that you're writing, right? Everyone's writing something a little bit different. What I want you to do is, on your own paper or in the chat, however you want to do it, I want you to turn the phrase around, okay, to something that would be the opposite of that. So if what you wrote was, the truth is I realize I have this need to be perfect, right? What would be the opposite of that, right? Maybe the opposite is, I don't need to be perfect, right? If I write down other people are better than me, maybe the opposite of that would be, nobody's better than me. If I wrote down, I'm afraid of disappointing people, maybe you could write down, I'm not afraid of disappointing people. Okay. If you wrote down invisible is the only way to be safe, maybe you can write down invisible is a way to stay hurt, or maybe you write down visible is the way to be safe. I don't know. You could just turn it around. Now, right away, you're not going to believe it just because you wrote it down. Okay. The answer is you're not. It feels fake. right? If you walk around with this need to be perfect because that's your survival skill, just because you wrote down you don't need to be perfect, it's not going to change. But if you write a new narrative where you start to tell yourself the truth about what actually needs to happen here, where your like real self can come through and like talk to this little kid who's really scared and write down the truth right now. First of all, you can let that little kid know you're going to be there to protect this kid and you understand why they're scared. And you can say, look, I'm not throwing you off the bus. I'm just asking you not to drive. I'm not going to kick you off. I'm just going to tell you, like, why don't you not drive the bus? Because you're driving from a place of fear and it's not going to help. But you can stay on the bus. Just let me drive this other part of you that is bolder and maybe a little bit wiser right now. Okay. But it's a little shaky because it doesn't have the confidence. So that's okay. But writing down this new narrative is really important. And then what has to happen is you need to tell yourself and really deepen this and look at this new narrative, because every day that you do that, you will look for evidence that that new narrative is true, right? Like, let's say you're in a relationship with someone and you say, God, I just realized that I walk around thinking like no one's there for me. No one's there for me. So what do you do all the time? You're like, yeah, I unconsciously look for the ways that this person's not there for me all the time, right? Which sucks. Now, if you turn it around and you tell yourself every day, I don't believe this, but I'm going to read it. This person loves me. And you're going to notice that you'll start looking for evidence. You'll be like, they do love me, I guess. They just made me a cup of coffee and it was so nice that they did that. And I guess I never take that in, right? Because maybe the truth is you just don't feel lovable. So you constantly see the evidence that you're not being loved, right? So it's the same thing with everything. It's the same thing with our work. And the truth is that everything that you guys shared today has so much to do with work, because yes, it's going to come up in your relationship, but even more in your relationship, it's going to come up in your business, because in your business, that's often when we're in a situation where there's people who we don't know, who might be in a position of what we call power, who we think we have to impress. And that's where this stuff actually shows up more than in your marriage, even though it absolutely does show up there. Those are the people that we usually trust the most. And so we actually we push the limits there the most. In your work, this is going to come up a lot. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to change the story. And the only way to do that is actually to go ahead and do it, because the successful people that I know, they're not ready and then they do the thing. They're terrified, they're scared, they're uncomfortable, but they do the thing. And here's what happens. They're scared, they do it anyway, and then they find the evidence that it actually wasn't so scary and it actually wasn't so true. Because the truth is, you guys, the real truth is that what connects people is your vulnerability, is the not being perfect part. That's actually what makes it work. The more that you are one of those kids who isn't slick, who's not cool, who doesn't have it all together, but you present yourself in a way where you don't have to be perfect. You're just real and nice and vulnerable. That's actually where the safety comes in. That's why people like me, who maybe were bullied in middle school, sometimes wind up doing better, because I don't practice having all these answers. Actually, all that messiness becomes like what actually helps me succeed, right? That's really, truly the truth. There's so much data that supports that that's actually how people connect, is by not being impressive, but just being real. Okay, so that's really number one. So do you need to be perfect? No, it's actually not true. Literally not true. Are other people better than you? No, they're not. Right? We have this thing called pluralistic ignorance, where we walk around thinking that everybody is better than us, that everybody's better. Why do we feel that way? Because we know our own insecurities so well, but we don't know theirs. So we then think that the reason that they got to where they are is because they don't have that gap between where they are, where they want to be. They don't have all those issues, but they do. So are they better than us? No. This idea of like, I don't want to shine because I don't want people to hurt me, or I don't want to stand out and be criticized and all that. Is that true? No, it's not true, right? Because the truth is that when people actually do shine, right, there's millions of people who gather together who feel inspired that when this person is shining, it gives them permission to shine. And it actually, the rising tide raises all the ships. And so very often you'll find that even people who are not the most self-aware, they love to follow people on Instagram who are doing great things and to cheer along, right? As jealous as we are and as much as we compare ourselves to people, we love seeing people being successful. That's actually something that lights up in the human brain. It makes us feel good. It really does. Yes, there are aspects of it that we can shame ourselves for, but in general, people love looking, and actually too much so, they like to shine a light on other people's success. So there's a double-edged sword there. And it doesn't mean that you won't have some people around you who are jerks, but it doesn't matter, because why would you let 15 people who don't like you, who will never like you, stand in the way of the 4,500 people you're going to make an impression on that's going to change their life? You wouldn't, right? There's 7.5 billion people in the world, and you're going to let like one group of people stop you from living your purpose? You wouldn't. And here's the good news. There's already people who don't like you. It's the truth. I know a few people who don't like me, for sure. So it's kind of freeing. It's like, good, we've already got that over with. There's people who don't like me. I'll meet people and I'll be like, do you like Seinfeld? Do you like Thai food? No, God, no. I'm like, okay, it's just weird to me, but some people don't. The point is, it's not relevant. It doesn't matter. Like, you could be the most delicious peach in the world. Some people just don't like peaches. They're like, I can't stand peach. I have a friend who hates tomatoes. He hates tomatoes, and he's super creative. He's a graphic designer. He's a songwriter, but like, he'll go off on tomatoes. He can't stand the consistency of them. He hates how they like squirt in your mouth. And we'll be at a restaurant, and I love getting like burrata, like bread and cheese. Like, I love that at the beginning of a meal with some wine. He's like, it's the grossest thing. I can't even watch you eat it. I'm like, you're missing out, right? It doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. My book is coming out, you guys. It is inevitable. There's going to be people who are like, she's the stupidest person. There's already people writing like reviews because my publisher sends out advanced copies. There are people who are like, she obviously doesn't understand anything. She makes it sound like it's totally doable. She's a total Pollyanna. She's privileged. She's white and this and that, and she doesn't get it, and she never will. And, it's all BS, and she's sunshine and roses. And I'm like, you didn't read it, but that's fine. And you don't get me. And maybe you did read it. Maybe you did. You do get me, and you think I'm an idiot, and that's fine. We have reviews on my iTunes. We have like over 3,000 5-star reviews. We're like number 23 on the chart. And there will be like 84 people who take the time to be like, I can't stand your voice. I don't like the guests you pick. I don't like the way that you talk. I this, that, and then I'm like, thank God I don't read those every day, because when I read one of them, I feel awful about myself. They're so bad. I'm like, I can't believe you took the time to be so mean to me. Like, what does that do for you in your life? Like, it's a free podcast. How did that like hurt you? Right? Big time, like big time. And I feel like such a loser. In fact, when I first put my book out, the very first 3 reviews were people who don't know me and don't listen to the podcast. My publisher sent the first few books to random people, and 2 of the 3 reviews were like, I couldn't even get through it. It's so saccharine. It's so positive. It's such garbage, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote to my publisher. I was like, don't put the book out. I was crying. I was up all night. No joke. I was like, you can't put the book out. People hate it. Why did I think I should write this book? And they were like, calm down. They're not your listeners. They're not your audience. They would never listen to your show. They're people who would listen to like a show called Serial or Radiolab or something about murder. Don't even pay attention. I'm like, and it like took so long until I started to see like people who actually liked it. And I still think it's garbage. I really want to rewrite the whole thing because I take it so to heart. And thank God I pushed through anyway. All the time I have to do that, right? So are you going to disappoint people? Definitely. Can you survive it? Yes. And here's the evidence. Have you survived people who don't like you, people who shamed you, people who you disappointed? Yeah. It's like, ain't no thing. The truth is, being 4 years old and being with my father when he was on one of his like rage benders, and like what that felt like was so much harder than everything I've ever gone through since then. So you've been through all the hardest things. This is nothing. And I guess the thing that I've always known when I'm like working, I think what I know all the time, you know how people say like they go to do a speech and they picture everyone in their underwear? So I don't do that. But what's similar for me, how I can relate to that, is whenever I meet anyone, you guys, my next door neighbor, friends of my husband's who I'm meeting for the first time, I go to speak at a group and I'm like, oh crap, there's 1,000 people here. Shit, I'm so nervous now. Right away, I remember all of these people have been through it. And so we can all meet in that place. And then I'm like, I don't have anything to do. I just have to show up. I just have to be real. And then you meet your people. That's it. So every time I send an email, I'm like, it's just a person who's been through stuff. And like, I've been through stuff and I actually do care and I'm present and we'll be friends and good things will happen. And if they're weird, we won't be friends. And that's also fine. You know what I mean? So that's your new narrative. So take a second right now, pick out any of the 4 things that I said that actually made sense, that felt true, because you have to write down what feels true, and write it down because you have to write a new narrative. Okay. Go write it down, the things that felt true about what really is so. Right? Do you need to be perfect? Whatever the things are that I said that were the flip side, write them down, whatever resonated, and then put them in the chat. The new narrative. Okay? Put in the chat the new narrative. And tell me why. Like if you write down, I don't have to be perfect, why? What about what I said stuck, or what about what you realized in the last hour made you know that you don't have to be perfect? Why? Okay. How you guys feeling right now? Are you guys with me? Some heavy duty stuff today. Getting heavy duty. But I just knew it had to happen because I've done all these one-on-one sessions and I'm like, we got to get into it, you know, if we actually want to make progress. Okay. Let me just read through some of this. Hang on. Let me scroll back up. Hang on, where does it start? Okay. I can step forward and handle the criticism that comes with being in the spotlight because I have been through worse and I'm resilient AF. That's correct. There's no need to be perfect. You can just stand tall and be confident. It's okay to make mistakes and be messy. People will like you more for it. You're relatable. Yes. Truth. I don't fear rejection. There will always be people who don't like or appreciate what I'm doing, but there are also people who love it. Also true. I'm good enough no matter what others say because of the evidence. I'm lovable and surrounded by love. It's actually true, but my brain hasn't caught up to the reality I've created for myself despite it. There are other amazing, talented people who also felt shame and pain too. I've been through a lot and survived it. I can survive people who don't like me or don't validate me. I have my own feelings and it's perfectly okay of how I feel, and it will not ruin my chance for success because I honor my feelings. We all have commonalities of pain. None of us walk this journey alone. It's not dangerous to be seen or heard because most people are struggling with the same things, and relatability can be bonding and be a source of safety. I'm not so far behind, but what I have to offer, no one else has to offer. There's only one me. Yep, these are all beautiful. When I shine my light, it gives me permission it gives permission to others to shine theirs too. It may set someone free. That's correct. We have a saying, what other people say about me is none of my business. True. If I survive before, I can certainly do it now. Yes, you can. I don't have to be afraid of disappointing others because they don't determine my value. That's true. I can change the imprint that says that I can get close to success, but can't really achieve it. I don't have to worry about being prepared because I'm always doing my best, and everyone has been at the starting blocks. That's not the obstacle. It's just where I am. People will connect with me because I'm real and relatable. I don't have to have it all together to connect. It's okay to reach out. Yes. These are all so good. Are you guys reading through these? Read through these. Beautiful. It's okay for me to be myself and not everyone will like me because I'm still figuring out me. I don't have to be perfect. I'm never going to fail because nobody is unique like me. Yeah, not everyone is better. Okay. So now this is going to help. This is just the beginning. All right. Let me just tell you, I posted on Instagram the other day. I'm going to just show it to you because it's hard to explain it. Posted this last night on Instagram. It says, a whole love language. I can make time. Okay. You guys have accountability groups. You guys have people. If you don't have one, you should find one. It is a lost art to actually just listen to somebody else. And what that can do for someone is so powerful and so monumental. You don't have to have answers. You could just care and listen, actively listening. Active listening is something that nobody practices anymore. It's a lost art. You don't have to solve it, but if you spent more time doing this, whenever people in your group say that they didn't get something done, you could say, do you feel like sharing maybe what's really going on? And then just listen. Because the more they can keep going back to this old narrative, the more aware we are, the more we're cleaning out that closet and we're letting things go. What we feel, we heal. Okay. So this is the work. When I sit down with every successful person, this is what they're doing. This is related. Okay. It's all tied together because it has to come out of you, right? You have to take action. You have to have a meeting. You have to have a conversation. You have to write a song. All this has to come out of yourself. It's not a widget. You're not looking at numbers and zeros and trying to get them to talk to each other. So all of this self-development stuff is integral. It's all part of what's going to make or break whatever it is, right? That's why when you're around certain people who are successful, you're like, they just have this energy. It's like, well, they're working on that, you know? Right? And by the way, human beings need a few things. They need to survive, and they're also always looking for energy, right? Like things that are alive need energy. So when someone comes along who gives you energy, it's a magnet. You don't know why, but you just need more of it, right? So the more work I do on myself, I give you guys more energy because I'm harnessing it. I'm working it, right? The parts of me, when we're in sort of that negative affect, those are the parts that actually that drains your energy. It's actually all data driven. So when you're feeling low, when you're feeling sad, all those emotions drain energy out of your system. And truly, the studies are amazing. People who are happier, meaning like in a happier doesn't mean like, woohoo, I'm going to Disneyland. It could mean like you're doing things that are hard and you're growing and all of that. It just like means like peak state where you're energized. You actually live 10 years longer. That energy actually keeps you going. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So all of it goes together. So now, 2 practical things before I hop off. It is almost Halloween. I have 3 little kids, and I told one of them that I was going to go get her a costume because all of a sudden she can't find the top to her other one. And it is like, I just asked her over here. So I told her I'd go to the Disney store before I pick her up. In any case, before we hop off, 2 things. One is, no, not the black cat. You listened to my show already this morning. You get a gold star. No, my middle daughter is not now going to be Mal from Descendants 3 because she all of a sudden wants to be, she can't find, actually it's because she can't find the hair and she can't find the pants. She only has the shirt and the skirt, and it's going to be cold here and she can't find the hair. She's like, I can't go if I don't have the hair. So now she's going to be Elsa, but she wants the new costume because her old Elsa, she wants Frozen 2 and the Frozen 1 costume she hasn't worn since she's 4 and it's ripped and it's too tight and I need it. And I'm like, you're only 6 months. I'll go get you a costume. So anyways, I'm sure it's going to be so easy to go get a costume right before Halloween. Anyway, 2 things. 1, you need to meet up with your groups. You guys need to keep each other accountable. And I'm going to make it so easy that you have to do it. By the way, I'm going to give a shout out to Michael. Michael, I sent you your book today, hardcover book. He's been texting me every day because I said on one of these calls a few weeks ago that like I want to walk more. And every day he's like, checking in, did you walk? And I have to say, I haven't walked every day, but I have walked like 70% of the time, which is a lot more than I normally walk because he's been like on my case. So if you're not hearing from me, it's just because I've been buried in work, but I have been walking and it's been so good for me. It's actually literally changing my life, literally changing my life because I walk and I come back and I go, I want to do more things where I'm not working. And so that's actually why I took 2 days off last week and went to Disneyland because I walked 3 days in a row. And I was like, I think I need like 2 whole days without my phone. And so I told my team in the middle of the book launch, we like canceled a bunch of interviews. I'm like, I'm going to Disneyland. So I took the kids to Disneyland. It was awesome. Anyways, so thank you for that. Thank you, Michael. So accountability really helps. So you're going to keep each other accountable and I'm going to make it so easy that you have to do it. Okay. You have to work on this outreach 5 minutes every day. 5 minutes. That could mean 1 email. It could mean drafting an email one day and then the next day sending it. It could mean one day you just look up an address. By the end of the week, you have 5 addresses, then you send the 5 emails. 5 minutes every single day. Okay. Now you're noticing some of our students are posting like, I'm doing it. And she wrote back and it was really nice. Right? Did you see that? And a couple of people are writing like, oh, I wrote to Amanda Creek Thomas. She's like, never write to me. It's okay. For every person who says that, there's 17 others that are like, you can write to me. Okay. So that, don't let that do what it's going to do. Like, oh, here's the proof. Let that go. Also, what I responded to, I read all these comments. So I wrote in the thread, I don't know if you saw me. I said, there are like a finite amount. I want you to get this in your head, like a picture, so that it's easier to proceed. In the film and TV space, there's a finite amount there's a finite amount across the board, because it's not like it goes on and on like the universe, but there's a much smaller group of people that work on film and TV and ads when it comes to who chooses the music. And their information is much easier to find, because if you go to IMDb and you look up the movie Twilight and you scroll down, you find out who the music supervisor is. It's actually Alexandra Pitsavas and all the people at Chop Shop. Okay. If you look at the Disney soundtracks and you scroll down, you're going to see Mitchell Lieb, Lindsay Klowitz. It's a very small group. If you go through all the TV shows, you're going to see Kevin Edelman, Lindsay Wolfington. It's the same people. And they each work on like 5 or 6 of the hit shows. So there's really a core of like 40 people in TV and like 30 people in film. And that's it. And they get all the emails. And that's it. And they've been in the business for a while, and they just keep getting those jobs because they get good at those jobs. People trust them that they can find creative music that works for the scene and that they can do the paperwork, right? It's both a legal job as well as a creative job. So that's it. All those music supervisors that I know, they're the same ones that have been here for the last 14 years. They just recycled different jobs, but it's always them, right? It's always going to be them. It's not like every year there's 25 new ones. It's them. They might have a new assistant here and there, but it's the same one. So tried and true. It's a path that's worn, right? A lot of songwriters reach out to them, but it's okay. Especially there's like, I would say 95% of the people that come into our class are really kind, and you could email them and they'll be fine. 95%, 5%, not so much, but 95. However, music for film and TV and ads, music for film and TV doesn't pay as well as it does for an ad. An ad campaign, we've talked about this before. If you're doing a spot for Hyundai, for Walmart, for McDonald's, they're working on this spot for 7 months, 8 months, and there's going to be a song in a spot. They might pay $50,000, $70,000. It happens to us all the time. If you're doing a song that's inside of a show that's an episodic, there's 22 episodes in every show. One has 6 songs in the episode. Another show has 11 songs. Another show has 4 songs. They've got to make the one music budget for this entire 23 episodes stretch. So maybe everybody gets $5,000, right? Maybe it's an MFN, most favored nations. Everyone gets $3,000, $5,000, and then they save like $30,000 for that one Bono track. Do you hear what I'm saying? So in any way you look at it, the amount of people reaching out to ad agencies is much smaller. Why is that? Because there's an ad agency in every major city. Okay. So you're talking about Chicago. You're talking about Minneapolis. Minneapolis has huge ad agencies because Target is in Minnesota, and so is Best Buy, and so is General Mills. So there's huge ad agencies that have built up around those brands. There's also New York City. There's also San Francisco. There's also Paris. There's also Milan. There's also Buenos Aires. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's advertising everywhere, all across the world. I've done ads of mine in the Czech Republic, in Australia, everywhere. They're going to pay you more. You get more exposure because when your song is in a TV show, they hear it. Yay, your friends watched Younger and they go, Kath, I heard your song. And that happens. And I'm like, that's cool. When my song is in a Sprite commercial, thousands of people are messaging me. They create videos of my songs on YouTube. They Shazam it and they start buying it from iTunes. You understand? The exposure is so much greater. The money is so much greater, and the people reaching out to those folks is so much less. Does this make sense? So when you're reaching out to someone who runs the DDB ad agency in Prague, they're not hearing from songwriters every single day. They're definitely not hearing from them thousands of times a day. Does that make sense? When you're reaching out to someone who does a show on ABC and their job is to choose music, people have found them and they're reaching out to them constantly. And the budget's much smaller and the exposure is much smaller. I remember watching Ingrid Michaelson years ago on the Today Show, years ago, and her song had already been on Grey's Anatomy 3 or 4 times, which was huge for her. And I think they gave her like $1,500 a pop, something like that back then. And then she went to do a show at Rockwood Music Hall. There was a line around the block, and she said to the woman at the door, "Who's playing tonight? Like, who are people here to see?" And the woman said, "You." And she's like, "Me? Why me?" And she's like, "Oh, they said they saw your Old Navy commercial. And that song, The Way I Am," right? That just started running. And it was the Old Navy ad that broke her career, not Grey's Anatomy, Old Navy. Because what happened was the song, people kept saying, "I love this song. I need this song." People called into radio stations saying, "Can you play the song on the radio?" And they were like, "No," until finally they got enough calls. They were like, "Let's play this song by this girl from Staten Island, Ingrid Michaelson. She's like 25 years old and she wrote this song." And do you understand what happened? It was crazy. She then sold 300 albums, 300,000 albums. That's nuts. But it's because millions of people saw the ad. Okay. That wouldn't have happened from Grey's Anatomy. It's not the same. It's not the same power packed punch. Your song is heard. It's in a scene. It's cool. If you get another show, it grows on it. Look, it's still cool for you, and you could still make a career if you had a song in an episode of a TV show every 4 months. You could still live on that. It would equal maybe like 10, 20, 30. If you did that every couple months, I don't know. If you TV stuff is harder. It's just less money. You have to make ad money to really make a career, right? That's why I have a career, is from the ad stuff. And trailers are good too. Trailers will pay you like one rate and you'll get it per week. So let's say your trailer is running on NBC, you'll make $5,000 every week that the promo is running. Let's say you're doing a promo for the Thursday night lineup or whatever. It'll play and they'll give you a rate per week. And so if you have a 12-week run, it adds up really nicely. But the ad stuff is happening all the time. Every brand is working on an ad right now. So where are you? It's like, reach out. Okay. So are we clear about who we're reaching out to and why it's so important? And by the way, all of the agencies that I know, they are usually, not all the time, but usually they make their bread and butter the film and TV people. And they'll be like, "Oh, I know Carrie Calamar. Oh, I know." It's like, okay. Can you get me a few big ads? Because that's actually what's going to make me a career, right? So when I first started, I had an agent and I said, "Would you mind if I pitched myself at the same time?" And I just started working on the ad stuff because I knew he wasn't doing that as much, right? It's a totally different beast. And I didn't feel as scared reaching out to ad agencies who weren't hearing from people as much. And that started to really take off. And then I realized, oh, I think I'm going to flip it. I'm going to work harder on pursuing ad stuff. And I'll have agents here and there pitch me for film and TV. And then I started doing some pitching for film and TV. And like the film and TV stuff sort of filled in between ad stuff, but the film and TV stuff never made it. For every like 4 or 5 things I did for a TV show, it would equal something I made monetarily for a commercial. And even in terms of the exposure, it doesn't ever add up. It's not 5 times. It's like 100 times the exposure. Makes sense, right? You get what I'm saying? Okay. So the one agency that's really good with ads, that's kind of like where they focus, is Zinc. And if I were you, I would just study their roster because they have such good bands, such good music, and you can learn a lot from listening to those artists. And when you're ready and you feel like these are my people, you could even reach out to them too, obviously. Okay. I hope you guys have an amazing Halloween. It's a little ironic, but not really, because we did a lot of scary stuff today and it's Halloween. So it's about feeling scared and getting out of your comfort zone. And we did the really scary work. Like this, what we did today is much scarier than anything else. It's scarier than being on a height, being afraid of heights. It's scarier than spiders. But you did it. You got through it. And I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. Zinc is ZYNC. Okay. Also, you guys, did you hear the news? I have a book coming out. You heard that, right? All right. So here's what we're doing. If you buy 2 copies of the book, it's not like a raffle. It's a given that you then get a virtual ticket to Sink Keepers, which is so cool because when we did it last time, you know what we did? Those of you who were there saw it. We took people from the what's it called? The streaming room. We kept saying hi to the people who were streaming it in the virtual room. And we would play music on stage from people in the virtual room equal to people who had tickets in the room, right? So this is cool. You're going to be like in the virtual. I also took questions and asked the panelists, people in the virtual room, people in the main room. And it was a big giveaway, but we decided to do it because I really want you guys to have the book and give a copy to a friend, because this is what's in the book, the stuff that I do. And also because I know a lot of you can't be here for it, and it's such a great event, and I wanted you guys to be at the event. So I found a sneaky way to get you at least in the virtual room for the event. We're going to have like 15 music supervisors there. And what we do is we play music live in the theater, and then they comment on it at every panel. So it's really fun. So you only have to buy 2 books to get your virtual ticket. If you buy the 2 books, you also get entered into a raffle to get, we're doing 5 giveaways for 5 live tickets. And if those of you who win already bought one, we'll just refund you. And if you didn't, then you get a live ticket. How does that sound? Cool? All right. So everyone should go buy 2 copies of the book also, because you want to support me and you hopefully like the work I do and wanted to get out in the world. I would really, really appreciate you doing it, but I think that you will be so happy that you got to be a part of Sync Keepers, because it really is so good. It's so good. I'm so proud of our event. It's great. Anyone who's been there in the past can tell you it's great. Thank you guys. Already done. Bought 3 books. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How do you buy the book? Let me just tell you really fast. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. The book is called Don't Keep Your Day Job. You can find it anywhere books are sold. You can buy the Audible version. You can also go to cathyheller.com, because I have a brand new website, and you can click on the book page. But it's important that you let us know that you bought the 2 copies. So just make sure that you let us know that you bought the 2 copies. And Angela, I'm going to ask my team where they had you guys sending that stuff in. Does anyone remember where they told you to send in if you bought the books? Because that would be good to know. All right, here's what I want you to do. Buy the books, and at the very least, send us an email to hello@catchthemoon.com with a screenshot of the 2 books. That will get you covered. And then I'm sure there's also like some easy thing that she probably created where you can just type in that you bought the books. But do that, okay? Have a great Halloween. Real fast, just to make it fun. Type into the chat, what is your go-to favorite candy? Go. What comes to mind first? Tell me things. Smarties, Twix, Hershey's, Snickers, Butterfinger. I love this. Let's end it on a happy note. Candy makes everyone happy. Kit Kat, peanut M&Ms, Reese's. God, so many chocolate lovers. That is fascinating. I don't go chocolate, so that is fascinating to me. I like chocolate, don't get me wrong, but I would be typing things like Swedish Fish, Starburst, gummy bears. You guys are chocolate people. Oh my God. So heavily into the chocolate. Good to know. Okay. Oh, Jess, thanks for asking. How many books do we have to? Okay, we're really close. We're really, really close. Like within like 500 books, we'll hit the New York Times bestseller list. But here's the thing. We have to sell a certain amount of books, and then they get to decide with their like lovely friends. They sit and make choices. So like I could sell 150 million books, and they could be like, we don't like her. You know, they could drink their tea and put their monocle on and be snooty. I don't know what they do, but it's not a given that they choose you, but it's like certain things have to be like a precursor. You have to sell a certain amount, and then they have to choose you. So we're close to even being considered. Let's put it that way. Very close. Like if you guys all went and bought your 2 copies of the book, we'd be at the place where like, we'll be considered, and then they'll see if they like me. Okay, guys, happy Halloween. Get together, stand for each other, listen to each other. You're awesome. I love you. I love doing this. I would not do this if I didn't love it. Believe me. I really, really love it. And I'm so grateful to all of you. I pop into that chat and I'm just like, positivity. I love every once in a while, everyone's like, I just want to say I love this group. And like, please don't feel like I take that for granted, because it means so much to me. And I tell everybody about you guys. Like everyone in my life who are authors and speakers, they know that like, this is where I go to feel home. So thank you so much. Have an amazing Halloween, and go 5 minutes a day. You're going to work on your stuff. Okay. You got this. Bye, guys.